Slenderman vs. Siren Head, two of the most notorious humanoid creatures in online horror. And these are some of the characters that went over the range of their original series. Both are some of the most notorious online horror characters ever. But undoubtedly, because of that, these two are compared quite a lot, which is not surprising. Both are tall, humanoid forest stalkers that make people disappear without any trace. But this matchup goes far deeper than what goes on the surface. Both connections-wise and battle-wise, these two characters have a lot more to them than you might think. So that's what I'm here today, to analyze both of these characters and to see who wins in the end of the day. Going all out against each other, who can truly prove themselves as the ultimate horror. So without further ado, let's introduce the characters. Slenderman is iconic. He's one of the most well-known creepypastas in history, with an incredibly long one compared to most. But when it comes to the character, it's a little hard to say what to fully use when it's talked about in verses. But before we begin, let's narrow down the list of what we will be using. We will be using the original Slenderman from the Something Awful forums. We will also be going over Marble Hornets, 2018, the video games of Slenderman, the 8 Pages, and Slender Arrival, and we will be using the Slenderverse theories to finish things off. But with that out of the way, let's start at the beginning. Slenderman started out as what you might expect, although there were some differences in comparison to what Slenderman would eventually become. Originally created by the creator Victor Surge, Slenderman was actually more of a physical being. He was known for stalking humans and even kidnapping children, and the creature was seemingly trying to be human, but not quite getting the pattern it needed, so it would take people's organs out and place them back in their bodies, seeming to analyze them. Slenderman also hated when he was seen on camera. He would find and kill anyone who caught a photo of him, seeming to have complete awareness of whenever someone did have information on him. But he had a lot of different abilities, from shape-shifting to invisibility, to being able to cause tentacles to form from pretty much anywhere from his body, to teleportation, to rapidly causing fog to rise, being able to manipulate people's memories, and being able to cause fires that could destroy a library. With this Slenderman being able to impale people on trees, a force that would take around 5 to 10 kilojoules to do, and being able to disembowel people so casually to the rate where he could get up to 1 megajoule, and being able to burn down a library, depending on the size of it, could reach around 4 tons of TNT, depending on the speed of when it was burned. But the most impressive thing the original Slenderman could do was actually his fog creation. This creation itself was able to basically cover the radius of a forest, and assuming he was able to cover a pretty big majority of it through his appearance, this could actually reach around 50 tons of TNT of energy, and potentially all the way up to 2 kilotons, depending on how far the fog reached. But that's not where it stopped for this character, because in his other appearances, like Marble Hornets, which is still considered to be one of his most iconic ones to this day, he is referred to as the Operator, being able to manipulate the madness in a person and causing them high levels of stress and irritability, at least to a higher degree than he was before. And he's able to use telekinesis to move playground equipment or opening doors without touching them, being able to cause technological distortions in audio and videos overall, and being able to drain camera batteries instantly. He can straight up wipe memories from a person, grow to massive sizes, and has the ability to warp space and time to a certain extent, like how he can change the room you walk into, or how he was able to send someone forward through time. like how he did with Jay, making it go from day to night in an instant. And he was also able to send his proxy hoodie through time to prevent him from killing someone. But Slenderman didn't stay completely in the basic online media for long, because Slenderman was also popular enough to get his own movie in 2018, with this appearance kind of being a mixture of the two previous ones, being physical but also a spiritual entity at the same time that could be summoned, but attacking a lot like how the original one did, with him having some interesting powers, like causing someone to go mad beyond the point where they'll end their own life, also with him being able to fuse people into himself, and even being able to influence your mind to make you think you don't have a face. While this film may not have much to cover in terms of the character, it's still kind of interesting to look back at it. But what is absolutely another one of his most popular iterations is from his games, Slenderman the 8 Pages and Slender Arrival, with him being kind of a similar force as he was in Marble Hornets, a force that kind of just appears. But what they added on to this was increasing his fire capability, with his fire manipulation being so potent that it can reach up to 35 kilotons of TNT when it burned down an entire forest. But assuming that this was an instant process, because it seemingly is, this can reach up to 142 kilotons of TNT. But even with all of this power for this supernatural force we don't really understand, something has never been right about it. And I don't really mean how it looks or what it does, but how it functions. It's so unnatural to us, seemingly just appearing anywhere, and something that can't be stopped. Some say it's a supernatural being that can't be described by science, but there are other theories that explain quite a lot of what Slenderman is. That kind of connects all of the incarnations of what Slenderman has been shown as. Because what Slenderman isn't just a supernatural entity, but a naturally occurring force that comes from a higher plane of existence that we cannot comprehend. It is simply a being that can interact with the world around it from a higher dimensional plane. And because of its natural curiosity, it chooses to explore the world, and especially with us humans. Because what the Slenderman is a manifestation of the human nature of belief. He is an inevitable force that takes advantage of our natural curiosity of things we don't understand, and uses our belief in him in order to fully exist. Because in truth, what we see as Slenderman and his abilities aren't even him, just the idea of what we can comprehend of him. Even the thing we see as teleportation might not even be true teleportation. He may just have an omnipresent existence in our physical plane because of the higher dimensional nature, and he just so happens to appear where we look. He is a being that has existed in our dimension since 9000 BC, being shown in cave paintings, so no one truly knows how old this force actually is. But Slenderman impacts our world more than you might think, because him just going between universes causes a process called dimensional bleeding, with Slenderman basically forcing two dimensions together and fill the naturally empty spaces of each part. But Slenderman can even do more than this, because Slenderman has a proxy group called the Collectives, which are beings that exist beyond our plane of reality, and Slenderman is the one who gave them that power, and they are nothing in comparison to him. But in truth of how powerful Slenderman may really be is the fact he's able to move through multiverses, and through all respective types of the multiversal plane, making him somehow even more beyond the already incomprehensible to us plane of existence. Because what the Slenderman isn't just a character, he's an idea, an unstoppable force. You can't fight him, you can't reason with him, or outrun him. All you can do is survive in ignorance, because once he targets you, your chances are slim. because he is an unfathomable, inevitable, and in the end, what we see is merely a reflection of what our minds can't comprehend. The true Slenderman exists beyond understanding, and is a fate we cannot escape. Siren Head is one of the more well-known modern online horror characters out there. Starting as a simple picture back in 2018, he rose to fame pretty quickly, and the fame that he hasn't died out yet, with him still being popular to this day. With it being known as the 40-foot-tall humanoid with sirens for heads, this creature is absolutely iconic in design. But for this, we will mostly be going over the direct art and statements from Trevor Henderson, but we will also be covering the Trevor-endorsed ideas of the character that he has mostly confirmed. Get a real good idea of what this character is supposed to be. But getting to the actual character itself, the Siren Head is a massive creature that usually stays within forest areas, blending in with its surroundings and moving silently, always waiting for its next prey, using its sirens to lure people in and ambush them. This creature doesn't stick to one place entirely either, with him being able to travel from location to location pretty constantly. There's not exactly one place where you would be able to be safe from this creature. But as you might expect from this creature, it is a highly dangerous and hostile being. It is surprisingly fast for its size, being able to catch up with cars, and almost always being camouflaged because of how its body blends in with the trees. As we previously mentioned, it is a mostly forest-dwelling creature that mostly prefers places with less of a population, with him mostly being noticed in forest, wooded areas, or small towns. There are many different theories on how this creature functions, but what is known is that this thing is extraordinarily hard to beat with its variety of different abilities. Starting with its sound manipulation, being able to mimic voices and other sounds, mostly used to lure in victims, but it can also destroy people's eardrums and make them bleed from every hole in their body. With this sound being loud enough to reach 200 to 220 decibels. This means Siren Head's shriek could reach around anywhere from 1 gigajoule all the way up to 100 gigajoules, which is effectively 23.8 tons of TNT. And its physical strength is also ridiculous, with him being able to easily break down trees and move several objects around easily. Even stated to be able to decimate a tree to the point where there's absolutely nothing left, meaning its strength is actually comparable to its sound. But when it comes to other abilities, it can shapeshift its head, turning it into functioning sirens or even streetlights, even being able to copy the appearance of home furnishing and pipes. And while there was a theory that there were multiple Siren Heads like a species, this has actually been cleared up as untrue, and Trevor has confirmed that Siren Head is the last one left. Meaning, at least in the physical plane, this is all Siren Head's doing. And its appearance is constantly changing to adapt to its surroundings, and almost always different. And it's even able to grow more sirens, and can apparently survive without its head. And the Siren Head can even grow in size. While its average height might be 40 feet, he can actually grow up to the size of a huge building, with him reaching sizes of over 300 feet tall. And his body is apparently parasitic, because apparently it can infect corpses and theoretically even other people to become like it. And it also has technological manipulation, with it being able to take over an entire radio tower, and he also has some memory awareness, with him being able to understand the sounds it needs to play to lure you in like it was reading your mind. It is even theorized that the Trevor Henderson monsters naturally have the ability to cause bad luck to happen. And the Siren Head isn't a new threat either. The Siren Head has been documented for a very long time. that he's been known as the patron saint of going missing with no trace, as the Siren Head has been depicted for around 44,000 years, and he has possibly been in the Materium for longer than humanity itself. But if you thought you knew what the Siren Head was, well, there is a lot more when it comes to this creature, because despite what you see already being intense enough, well, it's not all it appears, because what the Siren Head in truth actually is a being who comes from a higher dimensional plane known as the Void, a place where many other Trevor Henderson characters come from, including the infamous cartoon cat. Because in truth, the Siren Head you see is actually an avatar of an unknown form that doesn't even have a proper name, with this entity being incomprehensible to the human mind, so much so that the Siren Head has to form the idea that is closest to what it looks like to make us see what we know as Siren Head. And there's even more when it comes to this creature, because it theoretically exists across all of time. The past, the present, and the future, it exists all within, and experiencing all at once, which is why it never appears to ever age. And due to the fact that it is a patron saint, it can scale to beings like the Lamb, who is a metaphysical deity who cannot be physically touched, and the Long Horse, a being of infinite length, a creature that is stated to be the needle threading between layers of reality and existing above many dimensional layers, with its existence partially existing within the Immaterium, an existence we can't even comprehend on even the highest dimensional scale. With the Siren Head, along with many other patron saints and many other creatures, existing in this level of reality. And it is also stated that several of these creatures can traverse these levels of reality, and the Siren Head forming into our reality through these avatars. Overall, the Siren Head isn't a simple humanoid. It is a force that is ancient, potentially older than humanity itself. It is a creature that exists beyond us to the point that we couldn't even begin to comprehend what it actually is, because what it is in the end is the concept of nature that will never go away, something that is always watching us, because to it, we are simply just a story it can tamper with and replace. And in the end, it is the embodiment of the inevitability of bad things coming. Now that we've gone over our two characters, let's see how they fare against each other in a fight. And there is quite a lot to cover, so let's go down this category by category. Starting with the first category of physical power, both of these entities have pretty decent showings for what they are. And on the surface, this should seem like an easy win for the Slenderman, and technically it kind of is. Siren Head ain't no slouch, being able to exert forces that could probably destroy a city block with a single scream, but the Slenderman, even in his original stories, had higher energy output with his fog manipulation, and modern Slenderman can cause forest fires that can range from town to large town levels, or roughly 1,470 to 5,966 times more powerful than any physical feat that we've ever seen from Siren Head, which would normally be a game ender right there with such a big power advantage, and would normally win any fight, but that's not quite how this works. These characters both are potentially even stronger physically than both of those measurements we gave them, but in any realistic sense, both of them are too beyond their physical feats in reality that none of it really matters, because their physicality alone is not going to take the other out, meaning that physicality is more of a non-factor when it comes to this debate. The next point we should talk about is their overall abilities, and this one is actually a little harder to measure, Both of them have a lot of similar abilities, from partial sound manipulation to size changing to biological manipulation of both themselves and others, but Slenderman consistently has a lot other things going, like mental manipulation and time manipulation. So while Siren Head definitely has a variety of abilities that are powerful, none of them really stack up in comparison because provably Slenderman has a lot more to go off of. And that kind of leads into the next point. Who is better in terms of intelligence and experience? And the answer is actually kind of different for both. Let's take a little bit of a deeper dive on who these characters actually are. And in terms of intelligence, Slenderman takes this one, but not as easily as you might think. Siren Head is not dumb in the slightest, and he's a very massive expert in what he does, which is taking people, but he learns about his opponent. He knows about everything they do, and knows the perfect way to get a quick and easy capture. But Slenderman does this way more often, as is shown, and he explicitly understands when people have evidence of his existence and basically hunt them down. He understands the human body and mind. He knows how to manipulate people and turn them into proxies, and to spread the knowledge of his existence. And he, as a whole, understands how to manipulate human minds and uses his intelligence far more consistently than what the Siren Head does. But when it comes to experience, this is what makes it a little trickier. Both are ancient beings, but Siren Head is actually provably a lot older. Slenderman can be dated back to around 11,000 years ago, while Siren Head has been dated back to around 44,000 years ago. Meaning that Siren Head has a lot more of official experience with humans and hunting things down, and has been kind of at it for longer in the physical plane. Not to mention, he directly interacts with more people on a common basis than Slenderman does. So while Slenderman might understand humans more psychologically, Siren Head has more genuine experience actually living in this world, and also just existing as a whole within the material. So I'm actually going to give Siren Head the advantage in terms of experience here, since he's just been in the physical world for a lot longer than Slenderman has, at least provably so. But these might not matter in the end when we look at their resistances. And to be frank, most of what they can do don't affect each other in the slightest. Most of Siren Head's physical attacks are not enough to do much damage to Slenderman in the end at all, and very little of what they can do physically to each other is going to matter in the end. Even Slenderman, with his greater pool of abilities, doesn't actually have that many options. Even when trying to take out the physical body of Siren Head, technological manipulation actually won't work here for a couple reasons. One, the Siren Head isn't actually a siren. He's existed far before the creation of sirens, and doesn't work like the traditional electronic, if even you could consider him electronic. And he also has technological manipulation of his own, so he could potentially just counter the Slenderman's technological manipulation, if it somehow did work, which again is unlikely. And believe it or not, Slenderman's space-time manipulation probably wouldn't do that much either to the Siren Head. The Siren Head is theoretically a being who exists in the past, present, and future, so warping space and time around him isn't gonna do much, or trying to teleport him to another time isn't really gonna work because there will always be a Siren Head there. The only thing that really Slenderman has that can work other than his sheer higher dimensional power is his mental manipulation. Slenderman has proxies that exist beyond our existence as well, so he could theoretically do something very similar to the Siren Head, and the Siren Head doesn't really have that much to counter this in theory, but that's when we get into some of the more mattering advantages. That's when we get into their full theoretical power. With these kinds of characters, because it is almost impossible to get their maximum gauge, we need to fully understand how powerful these two beings are, to see if what anything they can do could work on the other. First, looking at Slenderman, besides his already time-space manipulation that he has, he's able to traverse between multiple layers of reality, being ridiculously powerful and effectively a god to us beings. But the Siren Head also has this going for him. He is also a character who can scale to other beings who can traverse other dimensional layers, and he can do this himself, meaning that their power and speed are relatively equal because they are both technically immeasurable in comparison to our line of logic, making it extremely hard to figure out who has the overall advantages. But Slenderman does have the advantage when it comes to his immortality probably being a bit more useful, because not only does he exist in a higher plane of existence, but he's also existing because of other people's belief. As long as other people believe in him, he will always continue existing. So on the surface that is better, but in order to quantify who truly holds the advantage, we need to look at one thing. With that being their cosmology. Slenderman is really hard to quantify in terms of how big the Slenderverse actually is, but to get a relative idea, we do get some explanations from the multiverses within the Slender Bloggins pages, where we can see them different multiverse dimensional layers, going from level 1 all the way up to level 4, with each seeming to grow in a dimensional level, with a level 1 multiverse being anywhere from 3 to 4 dimensions, and each of them kind of going a layer up based on the fact that Slenderman can travel through all of these, but based on that fact, the level 4 multiverses he would be going through would put this character under the 6th to 7th dimensional layers, which makes Slenderman absurdly powerful and does explain how he is able to control the collectives, who, as we stated, are higher dimensional beings themselves. And when it comes to Siren Head, which is also a little hard to fully determine, but we can make some pretty good assumptions. While he may have been born from the same place as the cartoon cat, he is confirmed to be weaker, which makes it even harder to scale him, and it is kind of unknown how fully he scales to the long horse, but at minimum they are comparable in some aspect. Both are patron saints, both have traveled a similar amount of dimensional layered existences, meaning that Siren Head would at least compare to him. And as we mentioned, the long horse can travel through multiple dimensional layers, which is very similar to Slenderman, based on the fact he can go through layers that we can't even comprehend. But in the Trevor Henderson mythos, we actually have a gauge with how big this actually is, thanks to a creature called the 12th Dimensional Body Hive. This creature literally exists on the 12th dimension, and the long horse is the needle who threads between all of reality, and there's no real evidence to suggest he doesn't reach this level of existence, based on the fact the Immaterium, which is already incomprehensible to us, apparently is somehow even more incomprehensible to us than this being from the 12th dimension. Even if you want to lowball this, the long horse in the context of the Trevor Henderson universe would have to be at least in the 11th dimensional ranges. And while you can definitely make a similar argument for Slenderman on him being higher, based on how that the 4th layer of the multiverse doesn't actually have a quantifiable amount of dimensions you can properly measure, the difference is Trevor Henderson's actually has a measurement we can range, while Slenderman, we would have to make so many assumptions to even get him even slightly above 7th dimensional. He's not getting anywhere near that, at least not to the same consistency as the Trevor Henderson mythos offers us, and the long horse could well be above this as well, so Slenderman isn't the only one who could be potentially stronger. And we know that the Siren Head is a competition to the Long Horse, meaning it has to be comparable to some degree, since it is just as incomprehensible in its true form as the Long Horse. And unfortunately, due to this matter of difference of their existences, Slenderman can't really do that much to the Siren Head, because the Siren Head exists too far beyond the Slenderman to really be defeated. To put this in perspective, Slenderman is incomprehensible to us as people. The Siren Head's true form is incomprehensible to the Slenderman. I know it may sound ridiculous, but that's just how ridiculous that these creatures can get. Meaning that Siren Head's mind is too far beyond what Slenderman's mind manipulation can actually go against. And Slenderman interacting with the Siren Head, if he can even reach the true state of it, the Siren Head is so far beyond that Slenderman just can't do anything to him. In fact, he might just be erased just by being around him. In fact, Slenderman's belief system might not even save him here. Now, potentially, yes, the Siren Head might not be able to put together Slenderman's weakness, and this might be a fight that goes on forever, or at least until one gives up, which would inevitably be Slenderman, because the Siren Head is far too much for him to actually do anything to. But unless the Slenderman can eliminate the Siren Head through interaction with his true form, which is basically impossible, the Siren Head has a much easier method. Even if it might take a while, due to the Siren Head's nature of existing through time, he might be able to kill people's belief in Slenderman before that belief even starts. I know it's a ridiculous possibility, but ironically enough, it is something that can happen. So not only is he more powerful, but he has the better win condition by the sheer fact that he has a win condition. Slenderman just doesn't really have anything to contend with the Siren Head. Yes, a lot of these things are in theory, but that is for both ends. And when giving these two everything that they possibly can have, the Siren Head just somehow stands out as the more powerful deity, and Slenderman just has no regards to actually defeating it. In the end, both Slenderman and Siren Head are the embodiment of fear itself, one a manipulator of perception and sanity, the other a living echo of humanity's disappearance. But they are so much more than what they appear on the surface, and to be honest, I did not expect any of this from either of them. But in the end, while Slenderman's mastery over time and space and the human mind makes him a nightmare that no one can truly escape, but when it comes to the Siren Head, those same tricks fall a little short, because Siren Head just isn't bound by the logic of flesh, or even the laws of nature. He is an entity that exists beyond human comprehension. Heck, it might even be beyond the incomprehensible itself. So in the end, while Slenderman may rule the forest and the human mind, but the Siren Head rules the silence that comes after. When the static clears and the screams fade, only one presence remains. Tall, hollow, and eternal. Siren Head wins.
This is not a test. This is a national emergency. A nuclear attack was commenced against the United States. Several major cities have been hit, including Detroit, Los Angeles, and New York City. It's advised to seek a fallout shelter until further notice.